Chapter 2 Episode 47, In the Realm of the Gods. Side stories. Somewhere in the realm of the gods, a thin man was approached by 3 other gods. Ugh, I'm tired. You're finally back. What, Fernobelia? You came. We don't see you come out of your territory too often. The thin man was Fernobelia, god of magic. The other 3 were gods who brought Ryoma out of his world, Gain, Kyufo, and Lulusia. I was taken here by force, but there is something I'm curious about. By force? The other 3 asked. Their answer came when 4 more gods appeared from nowhere and surrounded them. Hey, what's the big idea? Why are we being surrounded? Could you explain yourselves, perhaps? One of the gods took a step forward. It was Tekken. How about you ask yourself? Don't tell me you don't know. What are you so mad about? Come now, Tekken, take it easy. This is no way to have a conversation. Yep, chill out, and have a drink or something. The 2 gods who held Tekken back were Wilieris, the goddess of land and bountiful harvests, and Grimp, the god of agriculture and livestock. They were among the most gentle of the gods, with the former taking the appearance of a graceful middle-aged woman, and the latter looking like a middle-aged man with a hoe. These 2 were also married. Grimp drank with Tekken to calm him down while Wilieris explained the situation. They tried to come to an understanding. We're doing this because we heard that you're heading off to play around in another world. Tekken was the first to hear about it, and he was upset that he didn't get to have any fun, so he got us together, Wilieris said. Tekken made me use my power to find you 3, Fernobelia added. He called Wilieris and Grimp just so they could gang up on me? Speaking of which, didn't you go as far as using your divine power to keep Tekken out of your territory? He's good at making things, but he's a loud, annoying drunkard otherwise. He's a nuisance. Hey, I heard that. You seldom have any business with me anyway. Besides, you're not the only one that I keep out of my territory. Putting that aside, we aren't supposed to interfere in other worlds. What are you thinking? Hold on, who told you this? Lulusia asked. Don't play dumb, Tekken spat. Ryoma told me that he heard about it from Kyufo. Read his mind too, bad as I feel about that, and he wasn't lying. Oops, I told him not to tell other humans, but never said not to tell a god, Kyufo muttered. Chairs materialized from nowhere so they could sit down to talk. Now, could you tell me what's going on? Or, why no, just let me come with. Whether WS for pleasure or not, you can't travel to other worlds too often and expect us to ignore it. Tell us about it, Kman. So you see, we wanted to check on the Earth God. I think we told you before about how the Earth God was interfering with Ryoma's life for some reason. You did. I was shocked to hear this god was doing such ungodly deeds. Yeah, so we were just going there to look for them sometimes. You weren't just screwing around. We haven't told Ryoma anything about the god of his world, so we're trying to avoid that subject. That vast enough to quell Tekken's anger. So that's it. Tekken, were you just mad that they were having fun without you? Frequently visiting another world is still a pretty big problem. Fernobelia and Wilieris were appalled by Tekken's response, but Fernobelia pulled himself together quickly. Won't this cause some issues? He asked. The other gods grimaced. It shouldn't, but we've been sneaking in there, and it's been rough. We haven't found anything that notable, but something's strange. There have been a number of other people with misfortune thrust upon them, although nothing quite on Ryoma's level. But the happiness stolen from them doesn't seem to have been used for anything. At first, we thought that the stolen happiness was given to the god's followers or something, but when we looked into it, that didn't appear to be true. They kept everything they stole for themselves. That world has also been poorly managed. The people there have such advanced technology that maybe there's little left for gods to do, but keeping other gods from interfering in your world is one of the basic rules. We were always careful about sneaking in, but it's been almost disappointingly easy to do. I worried about that for nothing. We feared that it may be some sort of trap, but in the end, nothing happened. Were a devil to attack them from another world, they would likely respond too late. They are being that careless? That makes it sound like they've abandoned their divine duties. Perhaps they have. What's the point of stealing people's happiness, anyway? Not like we gods have any use for it. I'm not sure. If the humans no longer believe in you, it's possible to use their happiness to sustain your power instead. But if their world is safe, they should at least have the minimum power required of them. What of that? We were thinking the same thing. The Japanese do have particularly little faith, but there are other countries that are quite devout. Their lack of faith has yet to be a problem for the world. Environmental destruction is causing ever more damage to nature, but not to such an extent that their divine power would be impacted. That's why they have magic energy available to send to this world. Indeed, that was a foolish question. But in that case, they really have no use for human happiness. What possible purpose could it serve? Nobody had an answer, so the one god who had yet to speak so far decided to say something. Does it matter? We would never steal our people's happiness, so we wouldn't know, but maybe there's actually some use for it. Isn't that a good enough explanation? We'll crush them if they pick a fight with us. Other than that, who cares? Kirill, you take such a simple view of every problem. Do you ever use your head? Kirill was the goddess of war. Her armor hid her fit body, and she rested her hand on a sword hanging from the side of her hip. She was tough and muscular, but many parts of her were also soft and feminine. She tended to sound rough and masculine, but she was a full-fledged goddess. What's that supposed to mean? I use my head plenty. Maybe for military tactics. That's only one thing. Doesn't mean I'm not using my head. At least I'm not isolating myself in my own territory like you do. That's not healthy. We have perfect health by nature. I don't think that's much of a concern. Kirill and Fernobelia's personalities and lifestyles were polar opposites, so they always argued like this when they met. The other gods were used to it. Let's put that aside for now, Gain interrupted before it devolved into a shouting match. Why are you here? Tekken didn't call you, did he? What are you talking about, old man? I'm the goddess of war. Arguments are like tiny wars, and where there's war, there's me. I sensed Tekken's anger and asked him what was up, and he told me you guys were screwing around in another world. I was thinking you three could use a punishment. That won't be necessary. That's not funny. You're a god too. That's dangerous. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do anything this time. I know something weird's going on with Earth's god, and I hear that something's up with this Ryoma kid's soul because of that. If we get more visitors from that world in the future, something could be wrong with their souls too, so I can see why we'd want to be cautious. But they have to invade our world before I'm getting involved. Kirill was the best fighter of all the gods. She protected their world from all who would bring harm to it, and enacted judgment against their enemies. In the rare situations where humans did something that could bring severe harm to the world and the gods had to stop it, she was the one for the job. There happened to be 4 gods judging the crimes of 3 gods in this scenario, but she could have handily taken on Gain, Kyufo, and Lulushia by herself. If she used her full power, she could even have destroyed the 3 of them, albeit not easily. She had no reason to go that far, of course, but the 3 gods could imagine the pain Kirill might put them through, so they were relieved to hear her response. I thought I might have a heart attack. That cut some years off my life. You shouldn't threaten an old man like that. Gods don't have to worry about hearts or lifespans. Well, looks like I'm not needed here, so I'll be going. There are fights going on as we speak, so I'm relatively busy. Sure, sorry about that. It's not like you asked me to come, Tekken. I came because I felt like it. Gain, Kyufo, Lulushia, keep your visits to Earth to a minimum. Yes, of course. You're right, we should. We'll take turns going from now on. You're not going to stop outright. I still haven't. Lulushia started, only for Tekken to interrupt. Still haven't what? Nothing, really? We've yet to figure out what's happening there, you see? Yeah, that. Gain, Lulushia, and Kyufo tried to act unconcerned. You're still hiding something, aren't you? Wheelie Eris asked. You're not lying about looking into their god, are you? Tekken followed her up, sounding prickly once again. No way. Of course not. We were investigating over there. You apparently found out that someone is stealing happiness, so sure, I believe it. But is that all you're doing there? Tekken continued. The three gods grimaced and looked away. Well? Kyufo, from what I heard from Ryoma, you said you were going sightseeing on Earth. Yes, well, we were searching for people who had their happiness stolen. You end up seeing a lot of the local scenery in the process. I called that sightseeing to avoid being specific with Ryoma. In other words, if you wanted to go sightseeing, you could do that. Fernobelia muttered. Hey, that's a leading question. Kyufo shouted as he trembled. Kyufo, you make it sound like you were going out of your way to sightsee during your search, Grim pointed out, further fanning the flames of Tekken's rage. Gain, I heard you got into idols or whatever, what about that? Idols are entertainers on Earth who sing and dance. They have these boxes on Earth called televisions that display images, and those often show idols. I saw them a fair bit on the streets of Earth, but by no means did I ever seek them out. Singing and dancing, eh? We've got that in our world, so who cares? Tekken eased up when he heard about the singing and dancing, but now Gain narrowed his eyes and retaliated. It's nothing like in our world. Earth's idols are adorable, and they try so hard. You can't help but root for them. What? Tekken cried, intimidated by Gain's sudden fury. Wheelie Eris took a look at Gain's face, and he seemed to know that he made a mistake. You take these idols very seriously, Wheelie Eris said. You just made that quite clear. Now Tekken took a look at Lulushia, who decided to tell the truth before he could ask. I was stressed out on Earth, so I ate just a little of their sweets during our breaks. After that, Tekken's shouts and Gain, Kyufo, and Lulushia's cries were heard across the realm of the gods.